Hey everybody, welcome back to Harris Family Adventures. We are coming to you from Worcester, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. We're actually, by the time you see this, we are back home, but we wanted to share some of the adventures that we had gone on in the area with you. We will have been here just about for 4 weeks, and one of the first places we went to after arriving was the town of Salem, Massachusetts. I mean, it was the Monday before not before Thanksgiving, I have Thanksgiving in my brain. It was the Monday before Halloween. We are 51 miles away from Salem. Much like if you watched our Breckenridge videos, 51 miles doesn't mean 51 minutes. It's almost about 2 hours to get there from here. But we got in on a Sunday, and that next Monday, Reese and I were off to Salem, Massachusetts. So again, this was October 24th. It was 1 week before Halloween. So that is going to be an undertone to some of the things that we have to say. So we left about 8, got there and got parked. Here is one of the things to know about the parking garage, and this is true for a couple of places we went to. You take your parking ticket with you. You drive in, press the button, you get the ticket. You take that with you, and then before you go back to your car at the end of the day, you find a machine like on the ground level. You pay, and then you go up to your car, and on the way out, you just scan the ticket and it shows that you've paid. So there's lots of signs, they remind you. There are some parking options, especially the closer you come to Halloween, especially on the weekends. They have some different parking options because there are so many visitors. We parked at a parking garage that was attached to a mall. And go ahead and subscribe if you want to see our Scranton video. We're gonna make one of those also. Both the Scranton Mall and the Salem Mall were a little sad.
But mostly the Scranton Mall.
The Scranton Mall was really sad, but this was kind of a sad mall. But we were able to then get out onto kind of the main streets where there's lots of people walking, and for the most part, in a lot of the areas we walked, traffic was blocked off, which was really nice. I don't know if that's year round or just like during the month of October in Salem. So we didn't really have a plan. I guess I kind of assumed, and I know you shouldn't assume, I had kind of assumed that there would be lots of maybe exhibits or things to do. There's lots of tours you can take, but a lot of them are at night. So a lot of them are related to ghosts, which I don't think I would do anyway, because that would scare me. And a lot of them are in the evening, and we were there during the day. So we just kind of walked around for a while. If you can hear the wind, maybe it's those Salem ghosts coming out. It's very windy, so you might be able to hear that. But we just kind of walked around. It was a rainy, cloudy day. I would say, what do you think? Like a third of people had some kind of costume or accessory.
Maybe a little bit less.
Maybe a little bit less. And some of them, it would just be maybe, you know, like a witch's hat that you would find at a costume store, all the way to full regalia.
With like huge dresses.
Yes, so some of them were dressed in that era of the Salem witch trials. Others were just dressed for like Halloween. Lots of little shops. We went into a rock shop, which was crazy busy, but that was it. A lot of the shops, I think, are trying to tempt people in terms of the atmosphere. They were very dark, and it, like, you would kind of look in and it just seemed kind of scary, spooky, and I'm sure that's the vibe they were going for.
There are a lot of haunted houses and like psychic reading places.
Lots of that, yes. Like witchcraft places and that type of thing. We were able to find the monument to those who lost their lives in the Salem witch trials, and I will say this too. We had checked out a bunch of books from our public library, and we brought them with us, and Reese is gonna grab some. I had Reese read to me as we were driving up there because I didn't know, there's some of the books. I didn't know much about the Salem witch trials, so it was like, I always like to kind of know a little bit going into it, so you have something to kind of attach new information onto. So yeah, so we and I would recommend doing that, because as we were looking at the markers, they have like a bench for each person who lost their lives, and lots of people have left like coins or flowers or that type of thing. We were able to say like, oh, we remember that person's name, we remember that person's name. And then we went to the cemetery, and we did go to the cemetery in Breckenridge. We kind of become cemetery people, and I totally understand why, but you aren't able to leave the path in the cemetery, which is kind of a bummer, because and we weren't even looking specifically for people who had lost their lives in the Salem Witch Trial. It was just like an old, cool cemetery, but you can't really see unless you get really up close to some of the headstones, like their name and how old they were when they died and when they died. And if you're staying on the path, and I totally understand that rule, it's really hard to see. So it was okay. So like I said, we just kind of walked around for a bit, and I will put some footage in now. This is us walking down the street, and I just grabbed some footage of us walking just to kind of show what that atmosphere was like. I do know weekends are a huge deal, and as we watched the news like the following weekend, they had lots of like warnings about trying to get to Salem, just in terms of expect lots of traffic. You know, they were having specials with the train, with the Boston Public Transportation System. I'm not sure what the deal was, but they were running deals. They were really encouraging people to take like the train or something like that in. And like I said, when I was looking at parking, it did say during the weekends, they offered things like parking at the high school with a free shuttle in. I heard this, I don't know if it's true, so don't come for me, but I heard that on an average year, they have like 110,000 visitors to Salem, and usually that weekend before Halloween, they have 90,000. So keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. So you got to see some of us walking down the street. We took a picture. I'll put the picture up here, but we don't have video of Reece being scared. Or was it me? Was I the one that was scared?
Both of us.
Both of us were scared by I think he was just a tourist, and then he had a costume on and then just came up and it was like a scary costume. So didn't like that so much. Then we decided to go to the Peabody Essex Museum, because I thought, well, this seems like something that's regulated. They're gonna have some good information. It was $20 for an adult entrance, but then kids were free. I think it was 16 and under. Like, it was a really good policy. So it was $20 for the both of us. Very little about the actual Salem witch trial. And I get it. If you're in Salem, like, that can't be your whole life all the time. But we didn't really, they had a whole Salem exhibit, and they were advertising like, come see our Salem exhibit, but it was like the history of Salem itself. A small part of the history is the Salem witch trials. They have extensive history in like their port and sailing and that type of thing. And I think like Monopoly was created around the area, and that's cool, but it's kind of not what we were there for. We saw a fashion exhibit of Patrick Kelly, so I thought that was interesting. But they have a really cool kids interactive area. So they had like images going on a computer, and then they had a knob so you could speed it up or slow it down. So it might be like a water drop landing on a flower petal, and you could either speed it up to see it go fast, or you could like slow it way down. Do you remember any of the other pictures that you could?
Or like a dog catching a frisbee.
Yeah, so just some things like that. And then they had a microscope. Did you love the microscope?
I loved the microscope.
Reece loved the microscope. And it was, parents, I think you've been there like, oh wow, we've been doing this for a while. I think Reece would still be at the microscope if I would have left him. So they had a really easy to use microscope. I mean, I had flashbacks to like my middle school biology days, and like I could never really see in there, and you have so many knobs to turn. And they did have knobs you could focus and zoom in and out. But then they had a big screen that it was displayed on, so you didn't have to be looking in the little hole. And they had different animal skins and furs you could look at. Here's a picture of Reece looking at money under the microscope, just because we started looking at like, what do we have with us? Like, we'll zoom in on our jacket, we'll zoom in on a dollar bill that we had, we'll zoom in on coins and that type of thing. So that was really cool. I think the kids area even had more, but at that point we were kind of done. And by we, me, I was done. So we had to find our way back to the parking garage and then find the machine to pay. And it was tricky to find the machine to pay. And the machine to pay wasn't by where we had exited the parking garage. So we knew where our car was from how we had exited, but we didn't know now entering from where we had paid, and then we couldn't find the car for a bit, and it was kind of a whole thing. Oh, I totally forgot, we went to the beach.
Ooh.
Okay, before we went back to our car, I had looked and there was a beach kind of nearby. So I had said to Reece, like, hey, after we finish in Salem, we could drive over to this beach. It's not too far. And Reece said, let's walk.
It wasn't that bad. It was only raining.
It was raining really hard. There are no pictures. Well, one, I didn't put my phone out in the rain, and two, Reece was really kind and gave me his baseball cap because he had a hood on his coat. I didn't have a hood, so I'm just walking with wet hair, not like misted, wet hair. It was a lengthy walk, and that beach, we probably shouldn't have been walking in that area. Definitely not after dark. We shouldn't have been walking in that area, but there were some cool shells. We did find some shells there.
Not at that beach.
We found a couple of shells there because we were really excited because I was like, I don't know if they'll have shells. And we did find some shells, and then we carried them back. Found the parking pay thing, finally found the car. I was like, well, we paid for parking a long time ago. The parking cost would have been more. But anyway, so then seeing Reece's excitement about the beach, we decided we still had, some time. Yes, we knew we had a 2-hour drive home, but we went ahead and went up north along like Highway 1, sometimes Highway 1A, just kind of some other coastal villages. It was really, again, it was kind of a gray, misty day, but we stopped at a couple other beaches and got some pretty cool shells, some bigger ones, and finally stopped at a Dunkin'. If you don't know, there's like a Dunkin' every 2 blocks out here. Stopped at a Dunkin' for lunch at like 3 in the afternoon. We had some donuts.
Munchkins.
And munchkins, and we called it a day. So that was our first, after the adventure of driving out here and staying in a Scranton Days Inn, that was our first adventure out here in Massachusetts. So if you're wondering what we have done with the rest of our time out here, go ahead and subscribe because I will have videos coming out about once a week to update on the different things that we have done. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them below. I will do my best, or I will have Reece do his best to answer them for you. That's all for now. See you next time.
Forget the day we met, your eyes so blue, me piercing through.